We have a case from a not so known brand today. It's called Geometric Future, and this is their Model 5 case. It's a mid-tower case and it's mostly glass, but it has a few unique things up its sleeve. Let's open up and see what we got. In the box we have the case itself, we have a little pouch with some screws, some cable ties and some accessories, as well as the manual. And obviously the case itself, as you can see, it's one of those typical fish tank styles, but it has one unique item. This front section is actually for the power supply. And to be honest, when I heard about a front mounted power supply, I was like, ugh, what the hell is that? Like, why would you put it at the front? You always want to hide it. But I think they're up to something here. It's already looking quite clean, and we'll see how the build goes, but it already looks quite clean. And actually kind of like this little space right here for some sort of accessories that you can place. You can remove that little tray if you wanted to, but in their pictures they actually have a little accessory or like a little toy that you can put in there. Let's open it up and go through it. So it immediately comes with a little warning sign, and I have no idea what that warning is for. So we'll figure out a bit later, I think. All the side panels seem to be just a click fit. There are no screws anywhere visible, so you just kind of click it open, which is quite nice. The back panel is also the same. Kind of just click it off. You can immediately see the front glass has a little cutout in this. Yep, the front just comes out too. So they're all just press fit, and with all the panels off, it is still sizable. Like, it's still quite heavy, which is quite nice. Let's have a look inside first. What you immediately see is it comes with 5 fans. So you've got 3 intake at the bottom, you have another intake on the side over here, and we have an exhaust fan at the back. All of these fans are their own fans, so you can see they have a little Geo label on them, and all of them are 140 mil in size. So these are quite big fans, and I'm really curious to see how fast they spin and what kind of noise levels we're getting, well, thermals. Let me just see on the back. It's a 12 volt, 0.3 amp. It doesn't actually say the speed of the fan at the back here. So I wonder if it has it in the manual. Let's double check. No, there's no real mention of the fans here. But while we're here, we can actually check through a few of the specs. So it supports up to 2 3.5 inch drives or 2 2.5 inch drives. Motherboard compatibility is up to E-ATX, but I believe with E-ATX you might have a bit of a tight fit. Power supply length is up to 160 mil, and fully modular power supply cables are recommended. Then for fans, we already see 5 fans here. What you can do is you can actually have more fans installed, and depending on your type of the case. So we have a fully glass case. They also sell this case with a mesh front panel, so you can actually install additional fans. So in this example, we can have up to 340 mil fans at the top, or a 420 mil radiator, which is actually really cool. I like that. You can install 120 or 140 mil fan at the back, which we already have. We've got 120 or 40 on the side here. You can also install 2 fans behind the motherboard, up to 220 mil. So I don't know why would you do that, but you can install 2 fans here with up to 120 mil. So it's kind of strange, but look, if you want to have it, you can have it. And lastly, you can install up to 320 mil fans or 140 mil fans at the bottom, or a 360 mil radiator. What they say is if you did install the radiator, because this case is quite short, so you can see the motherboard actually will end with the bottom line. If you installed a radiator at the bottom, you will actually be cutting into the PCIe slots. So be mindful of that. A radiator with the fans, you'll probably lose 1 or 2 slots. I believe it says 2 graphic card slots, so 2 PC slots you're going to lose for. So be careful with that. As far as the I/O is concerned, we have 2 USB 3 ports at the front, as well as a 20 gigabit USB-C, the power and a reset button, and a combo mic jack. Then on the inside, we actually have a little GPU anti-sag bracket, and it's kind of screwed in there already. You should unscrew this and you can move it into any of these positions, which is convenient as always. For the fans, you can actually see the fans are already pre-wired. They're non-RGB, just standard fans. They're already pre-wired and they're daisy chained together. And they all come here, and you have a whole stack of them here. And then you can just connect them all up through a cable. So we'll do that in our setup a bit later on. Then we'll also have the front I/O cables here, and they kind of go from the front through the power supply shroud over here and out the back. So we need to route them across. So I think one of the things that's going to be a bit of a challenge with this case is going to be the power supply mounting and routing of the cables. While you can obviously route cables across here, any loose cables, you're going to have to find a way to stash them in here. So I'm actually very curious to see how that's going to work out. Other than that, you've also got this little bracket, as I mentioned, for placing some sort of toy on top. Let's say you could do something like this, and I'm going to measure it a bit later on, but I think you can actually probably slot almost. Oh, that fit. If you don't have the top radiator, you can even slot a little bear like this. Really nice. And if you really don't like it and you don't need it, you can actually unscrew it to the bottom. You can see that you've got two thumb lock screws. Unscrew, just remove it. Oh, I believe it has a few other positions where you can place it. So with all of that, we're gonna now set up our typical test bench inside, test that out, and let's get to the results. After finishing the build and living with the Geometric Future Model 5 for a bit, a few things became very clear. The case looks simple from the outside, but once you start routing the cables and installing the PSU at the front, you realize it really wants you to think ahead. Let's start with the actual chassis quality. The frame feels solid, panel alignment is good, and we didn't run into any sharp edges while building. The toolless glass panels still pop on and pop off nicely, even after a few cycles. And the little middle motherboard standoff being captive is one of those small quality of life touches that are always appreciated. Screw holes are clearly labeled, and you can add extra standoffs if you're running E-ATX motherboard. Clearance wise, you're covered for pretty much any modern gaming build. GPUs up to 460mm, CPU coolers up to 180mm tall, and a slightly modest PSU up to 160mm are supported. So unless you're running something really exotic, you're fine on paper. In our build, the graphics card did need a tiny bit of wiggling to get past the frame tolerance, but once it's in and screwed down, it felt rock solid. The pre-installed anti-sag bracket is a nice touch, just slide it to the right height and forget about it. The GPU can be mounted in a vertical orientation, but you'll still need to provide your own PCIe riser. Still, it's great that the case is built to handle both vertical and horizontal setups properly. Now, cable management. The Geometric Future makes it a strong effort here. You get a bunch of Velcro straps, and all 5 included 140mm fans come pre-daisy chained and pre-routed to the back, so there's only one neat bundle waiting for you. The downside is that the bundle is held together with standard zip ties. To adjust anything, you have to cut them, and if you slip, you might easily nick a cable. We really wish they had used twist ties on the sections that users clearly expected to rearrange. It kept permanent ties only for the things they're meant to stay. Even with all those Velcros, there aren't actually that many dedicated tie-down points on the back of the tray. So if you have a lot of cables, you'll end up using the brackets and any anchor points nearby to get things under control. It's doable, but this is not one of those just slam the back panel and you'll be fine kind of cases. Space behind the motherboard and inside the PSU compartment isn't huge, so you're rewarded for being tidy. Speaking of the PSU, this is where the design really shows its strength and its quirks. The removable PSU bracket itself is great. Undo one screw and then the bracket just comes out. You mount the PSU and slide it back in. The challenge is where the cables are attached, especially if you're like us and you're trying to simulate a non-modular or a semi-modular unit. The recommended PSU length is 160mm or less, and you can definitely tell why. The trick that finally worked was pulling all the PSU cables out of the back compartment first and then installing the unit and then feeding them to the right locations. That's not obvious from the printed manual. And considering how unusual this front PSU layout is, we really think there should have been an extra cabling diagram or at least a couple of extra steps explaining the process. They have a picture on their website where it's clearly using a tiny power supply and custom cables. Once everything is installed, you will end up with a large open space at the top of the case where the mains extension cable running through. Functionally, it's fine. You can just mount fans or radiator there, but without installing anything, it kind of looks a bit strange from certain angles. Routing the GPU power is also a bit more constrained than in a conventional layout. We originally tried to bring the GPU cables down and under, but because they have to go the long way around, they end up being too short. In the end, we had to pull them through the side, which works, but it's not as clean as it could have been. Down the bottom, plugging in the fan and ARGB headers behind the fan wall is tight. Be prepared to do a bit of finger yoga if you're running a full set of cables down there. Also, one of our bottom fan connectors was a little temperamental. Moving the daisy chain connector around would occasionally blast those fans to 100% regardless of the fan curve. That feels a bit of a minor QC or connector tolerance issue on our sample, but it's something to watch out for. On the plus side, the included fans themselves are nicer than we initially thought. Earlier I mentioned they look like plain black non-RGB units, but once powered on, you get this subtle ARGB strip around the perimeter. It's clean effect and fans still look good when the lighting is off. In terms of noise, these fans are no joke at full speed. We measured 55.4 dBA, making them the loudest case fans we've ever tested. Because they're 140mm, the tone isn't actually that harsh, but it's still not something I would want to run at 100% speed all the time. In thermals, Model 5 is in the middle of our pack, sitting between Montech Sky 2 and Asus PA401. In noise normalized test at 40 dBA, it drops off to the warmer side, but it's still not the worst. It is a few degrees warmer than the Fractal North. For day-to-day usability, there are a few nice touches and a few misses. The bottom dust filter can slide out either side, which is really handy if your case is parked close to a wall or table leg. You only lose this convenience if you completely sandwich the case in. The rear mesh panel looks great and probably helps airflow a little bit, but with the full build it definitely has a bit of pressure from the PSU cables pushing against it. It closes, just not with a huge amount of extra space to spare. Up front, I/O is functional. Dual USB 3.0, USB-C, combo audio jack, power and reset. But the front panel connectors are all individual headers instead of a single block. With the limited space below, my fingers hurt when plugging them in. In a tight case like this, that's just unnecessary fiddling. At this point, would really like to see more manufacturers standardize on a combined plug. So where does this leave Model 5? Overall, we actually rather like it. It takes the standard fish tank aesthetic, shrinks it down to a more reasonable mid-tower footprint, and then throws in that front display platform so you can show off your figure or model. It's not the easiest case to build in, especially with the cable management and the PSU side, but once everything is in place, it looks quite unique and not over the top. For us, its biggest strengths are aesthetics, the solid core chassis, and the support for huge GPUs and tall air coolers in a relatively compact footprint. The main weaknesses are the cramped PSU and cable area, the lack of proper cabling guide, and a couple of small usability quirks like the individual front panel header connectors and the slightly stubborn back panel. But once it's built, it absolutely looks the part on the desk. Thanks for watching. If you think this PC case might be what you need, check out the link below for more details. As always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.